Welcome to Leveraging Inspiration, the Inspired Patent Podcast, where we help you understand and leverage your intellectual property. I'm your host, Wayne Carroll, and I'm excited to bring you insights and stories from the success and failures of others and teach you how to win at the game of intellectual property. I always start with a disclaimer. The information I provide on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. We are not providing legal advice, and nothing in this podcast should be construed as creating an attorney-client relationship. Today, we're talking about asset protection. Did you know that setting up an LLC might not be enough to protect your assets? When you have an asset, which might be your intellectual property, you can become a target of lawsuits. We're going to talk about how to protect those assets. We have a special guest who's an expert on asset protection. It's attorney Ike Devji. He has 2 decades of national legal experience devoted exclusively to asset protection. So welcome, Ike.
Thank you, Wayne. Thanks for sharing some time with me.
What is asset protection, and how is that different than estate planning?
That's a great question because the two are often confused, and many times people who think they've done estate planning have asset protection planning when they actually don't. So I'm glad we're starting there. So in my mind, asset protection means using legal tools, risk management, compliance to create a predictable result, whether it is with an estate plan, whether it's for a business owner, whether it's one of your intellectual property clients. And so what we want to do there is find predictable ways to legally separate assets and liabilities from each other and to separate the folks that we're working for and the things they own from their personal and professional liability. So that may be an LLC, like you mentioned. It may be the use of trusts and partnerships and other tools. It may be the use of insurance, lots of different tools that we use. But the goal is to help people predictably enjoy, keep their assets, and separate their assets from their liability.
So what are some of those risks that you're protecting against and trying to separate out?
Well, people face many risks. I'm sure the case is the same with you. When I talk to a doctor, they're worried about medical malpractice risk. When I talk to a builder, they're worried about construction defect. When I talk to somebody who owns a trucking company, they're worried about an accident. So there are the primary risks that each of us have that are the most obvious big flashing red light on the dashboard, typically related to professional risk. And then there are all the other things that we do every day that we don't even think about. So I have a list of risk factors, which you've seen and which my clients get to see, which are some of the most basic ones. So some of them are very everyday sort of vanilla ice cream, apple pie type risks. Do you own a home? Do you drive a car? Do you own a business? Do you have professional liability, like a licensed professional like you or I do as attorneys, or like a doctor or a financial advisor might? Do you serve on the board of a public or private corporation? Have you made financial representations upon which others relied in making an investment? Do you have employees? Do you own assets that are relatively passive and create income, but also create liability, like being the owner of a rental home or an Airbnb or a commercial property? So that's just a handful of the things that we ask people about. And they say, oh my gosh, yes, I do all of those things. I do own a home. I do have a teenage kid who drives my car. I do have a business. I do have a license. I do have 30 people that work for me, or 5 people that work for me, right? In a medical office, maybe. Those are some of the risks. And the problem or the challenge that we have as asset protection planners is we never know where the risk is actually going to come from. So for instance, with doctors, you probably have doctors that you represent as medical device inventors, right? And holders of that kind of thing. So the doctors that we deal with are only, like I said, the thing that calls a doctor, motivates a physician, for instance, to call somebody who does what I do, is they're worried about med mal risk. But they're not aware that they're 5 times more likely to be sued by an employee than for any other reason. So we have to show folks that, yes, you've got that liability. That's the elephant in the room, obviously, the one that you called about. But here are all the other things, and here are some of the tools that we might need to use to help mitigate those risks. And as I said, it's often a combination of 3 things. The first layer is what we call compliance, and doing smart things when we should, following the rules, knowing the law, filling out our forms correctly, getting legal help to file a patent claim in a valid way, for instance, creating a trust that's drafted the right way, paying our taxes, all of the compliance issues, labor, following labor laws. Let's not do things that get us sued, and let's not allow the people for whom we are responsible, whether it's an employee, a spouse, a child, a business partner, let's not let those people do those things either. Then let's be insured against every business risk we can reasonably be insured on. And then beyond that, let's have legal tools in place to back up that insurance and that compliance so that we've got those three big layers. Does that make sense the way I'm saying that, Wayne?
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, don't do stupid stuff.
Which is often the hardest, right?
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully your teenager doesn't, crash into a expensive building with your family car or something like that.
Exactly. And we're entering the period referred to as the 100 deadliest days of the year. The period between Memorial Day and Labor Day is the period where we see the greatest number of personal risks evolve, and often from car accidents, right? Because we have teenage kids who are off for the summer from high school. We've got college kids home in many cases using mom and dad's cars, boats, cabins, home, right? All of these things are going on. And we've got all of these folks who are normally busy doing something all day, every day, who suddenly have 3 months of party and leisure time. So this is actually one of the more dangerous times of the year.
Okay. So what are some of the mistakes that people make when they're doing asset protection? I mean, it might be that, hey, I've got $1 million umbrella policy. Doesn't umbrella mean it covers me over everything?
Well, that is one mistake, is relying on what is typically a personal umbrella policy to help you manage business risks, right? So most of us hopefully have been well advised enough to have a minimum umbrella policy of $2 million on our home and our cars. And for high net worth people, it's obviously a bigger number. If you have that umbrella policy with your home and auto carrier and you have an employee lawsuit at your business, that's not going to apply. It's not going to help you. If you have somebody claim, as we just saw with poor Ed Sheeran, that you have violated their copyright and they're suing you for millions of dollars on some issue like that, your homeowner's umbrella policy is not going to come in and protect you and provide defense counsel. So I would say that as vital as that umbrella policy is, as basic and important as a tool as it is that I make every one of my asset protection clients buy, or at least advise them to buy it, as important as that is, it's not complete. And so you need to be specifically insured for your risks up to the right limit. So that means in most cases working with a specialized commercial insurance agent that can help find all of the right things that you need, get you that employee lawsuit insurance, get you that data breach insurance, get you that business interruption insurance, get you that general liability insurance if somebody gets hurt on the premises of your business. And if you don't have all of those things and are relying on your umbrella policy, you've got a big problem.
Yeah. When you're planning, do you plan specifically for what you see coming? For instance, a lot of people have been talking about we're about to enter a recession, or maybe we're in one. Does a recession change your planning techniques?
Absolutely, it does in certain very specific ways. What we see when there's a recession is that claims spike. Personal injury claims spike, employment law claims spike from people who might be getting laid off and are afraid about losing their income. People who have lost a job or had hours cut might make a personal injury claim or might file an employment law claim that they might not have made before. Sometimes when we see staff reductions during a recession or a downsizing in a business's life cycle, we see that those people often will make employment law claims that center on harassment or discrimination or something else because they are upset about losing their job. And understandably so, right? It's a terrible thing that's happening to them. But it doesn't mean that they were singled out or discriminated against. But there's no lawsuit available for, hey, I'm sorry, our business is down 40%. We have to let some people go, as opposed to you picked me because I was old or of a certain age or of a certain gender or of a certain race, whatever it is, right?
Right.
And so unfortunately, those kinds of lawsuits are not, I'm trying to think of the most polite way to say this, are not always based in fact. And they're based on fear, and they're based on somebody who is listening to an attorney who's encouraging them to make a claim to try and enrich themselves. And look, as I said, I get that they're scared. I get that they're desperate. But yes, recessions also increase other kinds of exposures like crime and theft, property crime, and things like that. So we look at lots of different issues. And in fact, one of the things that I can do is I have a whole sort of how to protect yourself and in your business and what are some of the claims and issues that spike during a recession. I have a whole article that we put together on that, and I'll be happy to send you that. Maybe we could share that with the links that you share with your viewers. With I know you provide a lot of information with these podcasts. And
Yeah, we call them our show
that,
notes.
I'll be happy to send you that, and maybe that's something good for show notes where I can got into quite a bit of detail on all the different things I worry about when this happens.
Okay. Yeah. That kind of leads to, since you want to plan for a recession, how often do somebody need to come back and update an asset protection plan? Suppose somebody set one up 10 years ago. It was set up very well. Do they need that reviewed?
I think it should be reviewed periodically. With my clients, we do an annual review, but that annual review is not so much because we need to change things that have been done in the past. And although that does happen, of course, things change. But in many cases, it's because we need to make sure that they're continuing to use the tools the right way, or that new assets are properly in the plan, right? So sometimes I'll talk to somebody, and although we encourage folks to let us know before they make a move or acquire an asset or buy a business or buy that new building, I know you're going to find this hard to believe as an attorney, but in many cases, they don't tell us or ask our opinion until after it's happened. So at least I think periodically it's a good idea to sit down and say, hey, we bought a new rental home, or we did this, or we sold a business, and have somebody say, okay, well, how are you holding that home? Or where did you put the proceeds of that sale? So I think from that perspective, it's important. Obviously, there are changes in the law, changes in tax law, other things that take part and that play a role. But it's really more about, are you using the tools the right way? And what did you buy, sell, or acquire that you didn't tell your lawyer about?
Okay, we're about out of time. Can you, real quick, in like 10 seconds, what is the one thing people can do today and need to do?
I think the thing to do is to act. I think if we leave your viewers with one thing, it's that asset protection planning is time sensitive. You cannot do it legally or effectively after something bad has happened. So think of it as net worth insurance. If you've been successful, if you're on your way to success, the only time you can legally, predictably, and cost effectively plan to protect what you've earned is the day you don't need to, which is today.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much. Thank you for joining us on Leveraging Inspiration. I'm Wayne Carroll, and we've been here with Ike Devji.